all of this data you're going to have to gather, more than likely, depending on the type of regulation that they roll out. You're going to have to develop all of these tools and all of these documented assets before you can actually submit the information. So an alarm contract, it may not cost you any money, or it may cost you money just to do a basic alarm contract, even though you haven't even started doing construction yet. So the question is, well, why do I have to have an alarm permit and an alarm contract before I even do anything? We are just trying to provide you all the type of nuances that could potentially exist as you go through the process or as they roll out the regulations. Construction build-out. Obviously, you don't necessarily have to turn in any type of build-out quotes and bids, but from an investor standpoint, your investor's likely going to want you to get multiple bids, just so you can demonstrate that so you can demonstrate the cost that you are giving your investor, that it's more of a you're giving them options. They don't just want you to give them one bid. Like if you
tell them what the 3 bids we got.
So the 3 bids that we got from a range standpoint, again, this was more of a cultivation center, not a dispensary. So therefore, if it's a cultivation center, the cost could be a lot higher. I'm going to show them. I have a slide. Yeah. Something that comes off the top of my head, but I have a slide here that shows it. But I'll show you all kind of the bids that we got. And then application materials, as I mentioned, like you need, if someone is going to invest in your company, you have to tell them who they are, how much they're investing, what equity you're giving these particular people. I know this sounds like a lot, but I'm not. I'm just trying to give you the data and tell you the types of things that you could foresee. If you think this is complicated, then if you know anybody in Maryland, this is a million times easier than what happened in Maryland. So in Maryland, what they did is literally you had to write essays. Remember, like when you applied for a scholarship, it was college, or you submitted a paper for English class, you had to write essays, literally like 1,000 words, and it was like 80 different questions. And so that was a very difficult application process. If I showed you that, you just walk out the room, because literally I would walk. It's ridiculous. And because you are entrepreneurs trying to get in, it would be things like, show me write to me why you're choosing the product mix that you're choosing. Now, if you're starting from scratch, well, you don't know what products you're going to have, right? You don't know yet. But I'm just saying that if you think what I've just described, this is Colorado. Other than doing it all right, I don't want to say it's a walk in the park, because it's far from that. But it's just, if you have the proper building, you have the money, then it is a walk in the park. If you have the money,
a long step-by-step process.
It's just a long process. But if this is complicated or too much, you have to understand the way that Colorado, if everybody wrote it out like Colorado, this is what you want. This is what you want to see. You can meet different people and they can help you in this way. If it's something like Maryland, there are people that can help you with that, but it's extremely intense. They scored your essays. Remember when you took some standardized tests and you got a certain percentage points for this section and for that section? So like business economics, you get 15% for your essay response to how you're going to bring business economics to your community. Maybe you get 20 points, 20% based on your security plan. So in Maryland, it was a very intense and complicated process. This is what I'm trying to articulate. So team selection, definition of good moral character. So just because you don't have a bad background, just because you don't have a felony, if you don't have good moral character, and again, the people who write the regulation determine what good moral character is, pretty vague. But I'm going to give you a personal example. There's someone that I know who doesn't have any felonies, but he did not have good moral character. So then you can't put him on the application, because if you Google him, you'll find trade fraud. You'll find how he I would bring him up, but I ain't gonna do that. But you'll see how he defrauded people and created this technology that forecasted stock returns, and how he just stole money from people. You can Google it. And so if the Marijuana Enforcement Division deems that even though you don't have a bad background, but you don't have good moral character via Google search or whatever they deem, then you may not be able to be a licensed owner. I'm just trying to articulate this to you that even though you may not have a felony or your business partner may not have a felony, if there's some shady stuff that they have done and that could come up, that could be potential that the regulators would say that, I understand you don't have a background, you have a convicted felon, but I got all these reports that say you defrauded this person, you defrauded that person. That could be deemed as not having good moral character. Student loan defaults. So if you have student loans that you haven't paid, don't plan on paying, then you might want to pay that now. So when somebody asks, well, what can I do now? Or if you have any interest, you might want to start paying your student loan, because they're going to say, okay, you want to do marijuana? Oh, well, what about them student loans you didn't ever pay? Can we get that student loan money and then come talk to us about doing some extracurricular entrepreneurship activity? So that is something. Tax liens. If you're in tax default, they're going to look at all of these types of executions, divorce judgments, all of that type of stuff. Even though that's not necessarily good moral character, they could say that is. Excuse me. Even though that's not necessarily bad moral character, they could say that it is. So these are the types of things. It may sound petty, or it may sound thank you.
Who's background are they checking? Is it the applicator or
The applicant.
or the team? Or
The applicant, everybody who's going to be a licensed owner. So if you're going to be an owner, they're going to check everybody on the team. If everybody on the team is going to be an owner.
So if you have an investor that's got millions of dollars, and he didn't pay student loan, you're not going to get accepted.
Well, that investor is going to have to be noted. You're going to have to turn in an investor agreement. You got to turn in an investor agreement. I mean, if an investor has that much money, I don't think that's a realistic question, because they're not.
He's got a divorce judgment.
I'm not meaning when I say a divorce judgment, I mean like a negative judgment. If there's something that's going on with a divorce that has not been mitigated or resolved, that demonstrates that something regarding the divorce is still pending, then that would be something that could prevent that particular individual from being a licensed owner.
Yeah, so in the state of Colorado, everyone, all owners, all employees, and anyone with a vested interest is going to have to go through a federal background check. It's very strict, and as he pointed out, there was one member of our team who would not have passed. So I recommend everyone Google everybody you're going to do business with. We should have done that 16 months ago. It would have been helpful.
Absolutely.
Hey, hold on. Right there.
Yes.
Question for you. If you're looking at a larger scale type operation and you have investors that are backing up in terms of money, you said in some cases you can issue promissory notes in some states, so that's something that's being looked at if they're out-of-state investors. Is that correct?
Yeah, so typically,
If they're putting up the majority.
yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Like
Yeah.
if I was to put my name on it,
Yes.
and most of the money is coming from out-of-state investors, is
Yes.
that something that's doable?
Yeah, so the way, and I want you to help me with this one, but the way that kind of works, typically big money investors, they know the loopholes. They just do. They've already figured it out. So the way that the big money investors do, they come and they just buy the building. So now they secured their asset. So then now that they bought the building, they secure their asset. You can own the license. I'm your investor. I own the building, right? So if you do something to me as your investor, I'm the one that owns the building. I write you a lease, right? And so now, me as your investor, I'm hedging my investment because I am the owner of the building, but I'm not owner of the license. And therefore, those are the types of things that big money or out-of-state investors do to try to mitigate the risk.
Yeah, another thing, like for instance, in Colorado right now, we just had some regulatory changes recently. Currently, the way it's structured is you could not have an out-of-state investor actually be an owner, which makes it a little bit complicated when you're trying to seek investments. Similar to what George just said is a lot of times what they'll do is they will secure their assets, they'll purchase the building, they'll set up, a lot of times they'll set up something like maybe they'll purchase the equipment, they'll set up leasing agreements, they'll tax a premium onto it, so they're still getting their cut. And then, for instance, in Colorado right now, the maximum amount, like, so what they can do is they can make you a loan, for instance. They say you need $1 million. They can give you that loan, they can buy the building, they can make money from you in different ways. They just can't be a direct equity holder. The maximum amount of interest, for instance, in Colorado right now that you can charge on a marijuana business loan would be 20%. As of January 1st, they've just passed this law in May. They're going to begin to allow out-of-state investors, and there's actually about 10 different qualifiers that you can fall under. We'll talk to like bigger investors. One of their stipulations would be that you would have to be a qualified institutional investor, and that would be, for like an example, would be a firm that manages 100 million plus.
So that's for if they want to be an owner as an investor versus just acting as it being more like a loan.
Yes.
Right? A loan more or less bypasses the owner.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And as a loan, you would come up with creative ways to make up. You can loan me $1 million and I can pay you the loan back plus 20% interest. But then you could also make money, and this would be kind of like a loophole. Like say you own the building, so you just charge me a little bit more on the building than what I would typically pay. You can't overcharge because they do follow average market. They will look into that. They will check the average market rates